Pioneers? Well, that would be an understatement. I am hanging with 2/5 of a band that really helped to create what has become known as hard rock and heavy metal music. It is Roger Glover. Roger, nice to see you.
You too.
And Steve Morse.
Hey.
Steve, great to meet you.
We prefer 40% rather.
40%?
Yeah.
Is that I remember as a kid joining a record club, and one of the first records I ever got through the record club was Deep Purple's Greatest Hits. And from that day on, I just love the music you've made. And the most amazing thing is, the music you make today is just as strong as that stuff.
Oh,
it really is incredible stuff.
You've got one of our records?
Yeah.
Can I have it back?
Many. I paid for it.
Oh, damn.
The latest, soon-to-be classic installment in the Deep Purple legacy, Rapture of the Deep. 11 new songs boasting the band's trademark sound. Rapture of the Deep is in stores now. So guys, before I even heard the new album, one of the first things that struck me about it was the title, because your previous album was called Bananas, which was very much a light-sounding title for a Deep Purple album. This one is much more in sync with the Deep Purple style of album titles, and it's also one of my favorite songs on the record, the title track itself. Tell me a little bit about the song and the title, what came first, and what the inspiration was for it. So Roger, we'll start with you.
Well, you know, we go into a studio without any plan really of what we're going to do. It's really down to, because we're working all the time, we tour, it's very difficult to actually prepare for an album. So we go in and we just have fun with music. And Rapture of the Deep was one of those kind of off-the-cuff moments. Don Airy, our new keyboard player, started playing this thing. Pacey started playing, and hey, sounds like a song. We spent about a day doing it, and frequently we'll just work out the arrangement over a period of about 2 or 3 hours and then go for a take. And it's usually 1 or 2 takes. So we don't actually do a lot of playing on the album, but it is very live. It's very, I mean, it's not totally live, there are some overdubs, but the general feeling is very much a spontaneous feeling.
The title of the song itself, was it something Ian came up with, or?
Yeah, that was from Ian Gillan. But the process of making the tune, we've tried everybody bringing in an idea, like here's a song that I think we should do, and other people bringing in songs that they think we should do. But the best way is for everybody to sit in the room together, then you can make instant editing. You know, the crossroads you take affects the rest of your life, that kind of thing. Well, the crossroads you take early when you're bringing an idea and the band starts to say, what about this, what about that? It grows into a group thing from the very beginning if we do it that way. So it's, you know, the idea is to have lots of, you know, be real aware and be really good, you know, technically with your instrument and relaxed about everything and just go in and then instantly create. And it sounds more like, well, it is more of a group effort.
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of people don't realize. So many musicians I talk to, very few actually go in to the studio all at the same time and contribute to an album equally. It's usually a case where people are emailing and pro tooling things back and forth to each other, but you guys actually go in and go for it live and all work together as a unit.
Well, I think for most people, what is the motive? They go to make a record. They're going to make a record to be successful. So they're trying to make a record that's going to appeal to people either on the radio or their fan base or whatever. We actually go in without thinking anything of that. We just go in and just have fun. We amuse ourselves.
Worked with a different producer this time around. I know, Roger, you've done a lot of production work, and Steve, you've done some as well, but this time around you used someone that's got a little bit of a different background than would be associated with Deep Purple. Tell us about that process.
Well, Michael Bradford did Bananas as well, so it's our second album with him. And it's actually been a long time since the band was ever produced by anyone. I think the last time was in 1968. We've done ourselves since then, more or less.
Martin Birch did some of the...
Well, Martin Birch, when I was in the band, he was just the engineer.
Right.
He went on to produce after I left.
Yeah.
So, but I think it was kind of overdue. I've done a lot of the work. We kind of do the work together. And when you're a bass player in a band and you try to produce, you don't have that objectivity or that power bass. You know, you say to the drummer, I think you should play a little bit like this, and he goes, oh yeah? Well, you're just a bass player, what do you know? So it's kind of difficult.
Right.
He does a great job, though. He does a great job, but still, it's easy having Michael involved, and it's not such a stretch, him going from Kid Rock to Deep Purple, you know?
Right.
I mean, Michael, so he looks like Randy Jackson, so everybody is thinking automatically, well, okay, you're just going to be R&B and rap. dude, but he's very eclectic, very intelligent. And this was cool about this album was he said, you guys just go, and he kind of pretend like I'm not here. And then whenever we did have a crossroads that we couldn't decide on, well, then he would be like the referee.
Yeah.
And you know, and Roger could just kind of relax and be the bass player and contribute.
That's the nice part, is being a bass player again.
Right. You know, it's amazing. 37 years Deep Purple has been making music now, and all the unbelievable records, all the records, all the lineups, everything that's changed over the years. The people have been in and out of the group. But one thing has always amazed me is when you hear Deep Purple music, regardless of what era it's from, it still always has that Deep Purple classic sound. And can you pinpoint why that is? I mean, Steve, you've been in about 10 years now, and Roger, you've been in for many, many years. What do you think it's Ian Gillan's voice, although there were records without him? I mean, how do you...
Well, you know, I think everyone has their own theory about this. Personally, I love that organ guitar kind of axis. Is the trademark sound of the band. The feel of the band, I think, really is down to Ian Pace.
Who's the only guy who's been there since day one.
It's, you know, he plays with a kind of feel that you don't normally get from drummers. And I've worked with a lot of drummers, and you know, it's very difficult to be an individual while they're drumming, because they're all playing eights on the hi-hat, they're all playing one on the, you know, most bands, that's the pattern they use, including Ian Pace.
Yeah.
However, he plays with a swing that's more like Buddy Rich than anything out of rock.
Yeah. Yeah,
so to me, that's the key.
I think having heavy duty organ, you know, on every single album has been a big part of it. And when I came 11 and a half years ago into the band, I was pushing hard. Let's get back to that you know, big, growling, angry organ thing, working with the guitar. That's what I love most about the sound and the spirit of the band is, and along with that swing that Roger was talking about, that Ian Pace always does.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up, as I said, Ian Pace, because he is the one constant throughout the entire history of Deep Purple. So much more to talk about as I continue to hang with Steve Morse and Roger Glover of Deep Purple. Stick around. Well, you know I'm having the time of my life because I have the opportunity today to hang with 2/5 of Deep Purple, or what was the percentage again that you said?
40%.
40% of Deep Purple. Steve Morse, Roger Glover. Deep Purple have recorded close to 20 studio albums. That's certainly not including all the great live albums they've released during their lifetime, but they certainly show no signs of slowing down. In fact, some critics have compared their new Rapture of the Deep to such band classics as In Rock and Perfect Strangers. So, Steve, I want to talk about when you first came into Deep Purple, because I think you brought such an interesting dynamic to the band, and obviously so many people were aware of your guitar playing, whether it be the Dregs, or you were actually in Kansas for a little while too.
5 years,
yeah, and I love the records you made with them as well. Tell me about when you had the introduction to join the band, as you said, 11 and a half years now already.
Yeah.
You had some interesting paths that you had went through in your life up to that point, where you had actually dropped out of the music business for a couple times. You were an airline pilot at one point. What was it about the invitation to join Deep Purple that made it so appealing?
Well, first of all, the fact that they were looking not for a carbon copy to replace Richie, and that they, you know, were open to somebody who's weird, you know, who's had a lot of, you know, diverse influence.
Right.
That was appealing right off the bat, and we came up with a good plan. Rather than having an audition or anything, we just get together and play 4 gigs, and then we'll talk about it. As it turns out, within a few minutes of the first, we had a rehearsal the day before the first gig, and within a few minutes of just jamming together, I was going, whoa, the band's really good. And I didn't know what to expect, because, you know, there's always a possibility that it could be that everyone's living off the name, and you know, and
right.
it could have been something like that. I was so relieved and so happy. And then John was just reading my mind on the organ, and the feel was so fantastic. I just settled right in and said, hey, you know, this is really fun. And we played the gigs. Everyone got along great. And there's some luck involved with chemistry that way, you know. You can put a bunch of good musicians in a room, and it doesn't always result in a good chemistry. It's just, I don't know what it is, but it was working. So
interesting. It's a bit like going down the street and saying, "Now, I need a friend. Who am I going to? You? Can you be my friend?" You know.
Well, how was it for you guys? I mean, how did Steve come on your radar first, and for the band to? Did you hold the? Were there other people on the list? Was he the guy you really wanted to get? Did it just click? I mean, how did that?
Well,
work?
depending on which story you hear.
So let's get the real story.
The real story is that I heard Dixie Dregs years ago in the '80s, early '80s in Rainbow, and you know started buying albums, and then Steve Morse band, the introduction came out. I got that. And when I was doing, we were recording Slaves and Masters down in Florida. And I saw in the local magazine there, Steve Morse is playing. Steve Morse band, wow, local gig for us. So we went on to see him. And I was blown away with him live. And I was actually too shy to go up and say hello. Can you believe that? You passed me within like about 3 feet. And I wanted to go, just to touch you, you know. I thought you were great. Anyway,
you never said that.
I never.
We're having a moment here on VH1 Classic.
Never thought in a million years that I'd ever be working with this guy, you know. But when we were looking for a guitarist, to me it's always been the Deep Purple trademark is virtuoso playing.
Sure.
And it's, you know, you can't get a young guy with something to prove who's like all animal and all, you know, energy, but without any musical talent. It had to be something with musical talent. And Joe Satriani was a sort of temporary replacement, and when he couldn't be the regular guy, although we never actually asked him, it just transpired that couldn't be, and a great guitarist as well. We were mulling it over, and I saw that Steve Morse Band introduction CD on top of a pile of my CDs at home, and I went, oh, Steve Morse, let's call him. No, he wouldn't be interested, would he? Well, let's try.
And the one question, and I love this, the one question that I had heard, the first question you asked the band. Tell everybody, when you were asked to join Deep Purple, what you asked them, Steve.
Well, this isn't the definitive only thing I asked, but it was the first thing I asked. I said, are they going to tell me what to wear? You know, it was just, remember, I'd been an airline pilot and was, you know, in uniform, and the music business, some people were running scared and were chasing the trends. You know, like, you have to look this way, and we're only, you know, we need this many tattoos, and you know, whatever the thing. I just didn't want anybody that was chasing the trends that I had to work with, you know. I just can't do that.
Right. I totally can relate to that. That's awesome. And one of the other things, too, that I feel makes you such a great fit for the band is, to me, Deep Purple was always a hard rock jam band. I mean, that's really how I described the band, especially live. And on the new album, Rapture of the Deep, I also noticed there's a lot of passages on the record where you guys really open up and play. All of you have your moments on the record and really interact. It's come on the vinyl, or, well, I'm old school, I say vinyl, but on the CD, as well as in the live form. And that's something, obviously, that Steve was known for and Deep Purple was known for. So it really, I'm sure, in a live situation, really clicked for both of you, too. And that's why, I guess, 11 years later, you know, we're still...
It's always an attraction to go in a studio and just bang out 3- and 4-minute songs, because it's easy. And I think on the last album, we didn't really give ourselves enough room to actually stretch a bit. Which is actually, there was a conscious decision on this album.
Yeah, and it definitely shows that. That's one of the great things I love about it, is there's that interaction with Don and yourself and the stuff that goes on
Don
there.
is fantastic.
And we should mention that real quick, and we'll come back with plenty more coming up. But Don Airey is now the keyboard player in Deep Purple, who's played with so many different people. John Lord is retired, or is... I know that there was some talk about John maybe coming back, in, out. He's...
No, he's not retired. He's just doing his music.
On a much lighter schedule. I mean, Deep Purple schedule is, you know, I mean, you have to, like, have an EKG before you even read the tour schedule.
Well, we were on tour with Bananas for 18 months.
Wow.
Next year with Rapture, we're going to be touring for about 2 years.
Right.
Around the world. And the world, you know, it's a literal world.
Right.
for us. We go
Around the
a lot of
world
places.
means around the friggin' world.
And I want to talk about that in our next moment together, because Deep Purple truly is an international band, and I think Don is a great addition to the band. He plays great live and on the record
Yes,
as
he
well.
does.
Unbelievable.
So plenty more coming up as I continue to hang with Roger Glover, Steve Morse of Deep Purple. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to hang with these guys today at VH1 Classic. And our timing is great because their time is about to get very scarce as they're about to head out on another world tour. I'm talking about Steve Morse, Roger Glover of Deep Purple. And that tour will be in support of the band's great new album, Rapture of the Deep, an album steeped in the Deep Purple hard rock tradition. Just what do I mean by that? Well, you'll have to find out for yourself, because Rapture of the Deep is in stores now. We'll get to these Levi's 501 original jeans, which have been signed by people like Paul Weller and Queen and the Spin Doctors and Chicago and Earth, Wind & Fire. We'll get to them in just a second. But first, some more moments here with Roger Glover and Steve Morse. You guys talked about the tour coming up and how much touring you did in support of Bananas. Deep Purple always has been a truly international band. I mean, you guys go to all corners of the globe. When, Roger, I guess this would be more for you, when did it first come to pass that Deep Purple made these connections in all these different parts of the globe and it became so international? Do you remember what point in the band's career it had?
Well, you know, in the 70s, it was really exploded for Purple in America and across Europe and England and so on. And there's several places you couldn't go to then. You couldn't go to Spain, because Franco was in power. You couldn't go to South America, because it was too dangerous. You couldn't go to any Eastern Bloc countries. And it's really in the last 15 or so years that everything like that's opened up. We have a huge audience in Russia and Poland, Czechoslovakia, places like that. And partly because of the 70s. We didn't know it at the time, but the band's fame actually reached there, and people used to have little bootleg tapes. In fact, there's people in Russia I've met that went to prison for having our music, because it was illegal to have Western music.
Wow.
We became somewhat of a kind of symbol of freedom to a lot of people back then, and we actually didn't even know it until relatively recently, till let's say 10, 15 years ago. And we went there for the first time, and wow, what a welcome we had. And we go to a lot of places, and we went to China last year, first band into China.
Wow.
It was a pretty neat experience. And places like Korea and Turkey, and the world's actually a pretty big place. We did, I think, 38 countries on the last tour.
Wow. Steve, how about for you? What's that experience like? Yeah, I'm sure you didn't do that level of touring up until this point, right? Hitting all those places?
Well, we did mostly U.S. with Dre's and Steve Morse Band and Kansas.
Right.
So when the first long tour I did with them was, I think, I don't know, just Africa and India and Singapore. But, I mean, it was cool. I'm on tour with the band. I'm eating Indian food for breakfast because I'm in India. You know? It's cool. It's very, very interesting. And I've sort of made my own little amateur kind of study of the world. And Roger likes to walk around, Don does, and so do I. We like to go, just get a feel for every city that we're in if we have the time.
Right.
And it's amazing. Roger does these incredible photo, journalistic kind of collections too. But I don't gather any evidence, just in my mind. I just check out the people, the similarities, how everyone has the same hopes and dreams, same problems, same love for music. Right. And you look out at the gig, wherever we're playing, anytime, and the people, they all look the same. They all have the same, they react the same way to the music in different spots. You see them, they just love it. It's the international language.
It's weird, no? You got to travel all over the world to find out that everyone's the same.
How do you guys even go about picking out of 37 years of music a set list now? I can't even imagine. I mean, because you've got to have those key songs in there that everybody's coming to hear, Smoke on the Water or Space Truckin' or Highway Star, whatever it is, but then you obviously need to get to your newer music. You all get in a room and hash it out? It's
actually all very quick. It happens about 5 minutes before we go on stage.
Oh, really?
Well, 5 minutes, I mean an hour or so.
Right.
We don't rehearse a lot, and we don't actually prepare a lot. Because it's live, because it's in the moment, you kind of welcome those spontaneous moments, even if they're mistakes, you know, because that's what being live is all about. And any set list has to have some kind of balance between the songs people recognize, Highway Stars and Smoke in the Waters, and the newer stuff and some in-between stuff. And it's one of those questions that has the fans just up in arms, because they all want a different set list. But we just basically please ourselves.
That's the only way you can do it, I imagine, because I've asked a lot of bands this question, and I actually just saw Judas Priest recently, and they've been at it 30+ years now, and they said the same thing to me. They said, you know, you just can't please every era, so you do the best set list you can and make the band happy, and hopefully the fans will come along for the ride is really all you can do.
And there's extenuating factors, like if it's a short thing, you're on a festival and you got to reduce set list time, well then now it gets a little bit more difficult because we're used to editing it somewhat, now we got to edit more. What songs we got a set with everybody likes the song, so what do you take out? Then there gets to be a little bit more animated discussion in the dressing room. And then sometimes, you know, Ian said, you know, man, you know, I'm starting to get a cold, let's not do that one. And
that one would be probably Child in Time or something, right?
We used to do it all the time, and he was, you know, he can just still do it, but it.
Oh, I'm sure he can, but that's got to be, got to be a killer, I would imagine.
We don't actually do that anymore. He's retired that.
Is he?
Yeah. He said, and I don't blame him, actually. He said it became more of an Olympic event than a song.
It's one of those classics, though, that is truly amazing. So, all right, we want to ask you if you can be so kind as to sign these Levi's 501 original jeans. We are going to have all these signatures on here, and then we're going to auction these off for VH1 Save the Music, helping school music programs. So if you guys would certainly increase the value of these jeans when we do auction them off by finding a good spot somewhere on there. I think there's an extra pen here. There's one for you too, Roger. Find a good spot there.
You know, good music education is very important. And I remember in my school, you kind of had to do classical music, and they frowned on. But then we had a new music teacher who let us bring, you know, pop songs, and we could play a record. And that was such an innovation, and all of a sudden, everyone loved the music class, you know, because it had something more going for it.
You also, Roger, did the artwork on the new album, Rapture of the Deep, too, right?
Yeah.
So art is something that, I know Steve mentioned your photography and everything like that, that's something you're very much into as well, right?
Well, I guess if you're a creative person, whether it's music or photography or art, it's going to come out some way, shape or form. And yeah, I take a lot of photographs traveling around because I see quite a lot of things. And strangely enough, the biggest collection I've got is corridors.
Really?
Yes, because we live in hotels.
Right.
So every day I'm looking at a different corridor. And it's got a character. So I thought, well, I'm wasting my time here. I should be using corridor time. Take a picture of a corridor. So I've got thousands of corridors all kind of mapped out.
You're going to put that out someday in a book?
It's you know, it's got, I'm just one of those crazy people, I guess.
You should put it out. I think that would be interesting.
Actually, it's going to be, I'm hoping very soon, it's going to be an art piece, like a video.
Right.
One moving against the other, and I'll write some music for it.
Before I let you guys go, I just want to ask you what the future holds. Obviously, you're going out on tour in support of Rapture of the Deep, and you're going to be out there for a while. Anything else that fans should be on the lookout for, either from Deep Purple, or I know that you both also do individual projects as well. I know, Roger, you did a solo record, and Steve, you still do some stuff, some Dreg stuff recently, too, not too long ago. So anything collectively or individually fans should be on the lookout for before we let you go? Steve?
I did a recording with the group called Living Loud, and it's going to be released soon in the United States too, as on an independent, or actually I don't know which company it is, but it's coming out soon. And the main thing is check out Deep Purple live, because I really believe it's a live band in that it's really strong communication of good stuff, and that's the kind of thing you can bring your kids to without, you know, having to, you know, be embarrassed.
Right. Absolutely, Roger.
The thing about Deep Purple, really, that I'm quite proud of, is that we have a sense of humour.
Right.
You know, I see a lot of bands having this kind of menacing attitude, either in photographs or on stage.
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of patently false.
Right.
You know, we mean it. You know. And we don't go on stage with that attitude. People in China, I think, especially the government, were very concerned about, you know, what kind of insurrection we were going to cause.
Right.
But I mean, now they know what Deep Purple's all about. It's really about having a good time.
Last time I saw Deep Purple, Ian Gillan came out in white pants and shirt and no shoes and bongos. So who's he going to hurt on stage?
I don't know.
There's a funny little story about that. He came on stage when we did the Live 8 concert, and it was in the middle of the afternoon. They had a black rolled out linoleum stage. The sun was shining on all day. Anyway, he came out like that and started doing this funny dance I'd never seen him do. Then he goes over to the side of the stage and comes back out with shoes on, and he's a lot more relaxed.
He was dancing because it was so hot.
It was 180,
is that what it was?
180 degrees on the stage, on the stage floor.
Great stuff. Guys, thank you so much for all the years of great music and all the great live shows as well. And I know they will continue as Deep Purple gets ready to come your way on the road or anywhere in the world at this point. You know they'll be turning up. And look for Roger's book of Hallways coming out soon to a store near you. Thank you
Eddie.
so much. Great to meet you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Great
Continue success, safe travels.
Thank you.
Thank you.